Raki Kazaki Dumelgi, why did I ever leave the mountains? We're back on Total War Warhammer 2 today, and Ungrim Ironfist and the Slayers of Karak Kadrin will soon be added as their own playable sub-faction in the campaign, which I'm very much looking forward to. And they'll also be getting the addition of Giant Slayers, who have massive melee attack of 50, and they're going to be a very powerful force to contend with, I think. Maybe make rushing with Slayers a lot more viable. So one of the best ways we can celebrate this incoming addition to the Total War Warhammer campaign and multiplayer is by rocking with a Slayer build ourselves. So we're going very thematic here. We've got 6 Slayers led by Ungrim himself, and this can be a little bit problematic in a multiplayer game because, as we know, there are a lot of problems with Slayers. They offer quite a lot. They also have quite a bit of detriment. So one of the biggest issues they have, 0 armor. They're incredibly squishy. They can get blown over by a small wind, and basically they just die in droves whenever they get into close quarters combat. So one of the ways we can combat this is, one, with a runesmith. That will give them a little bit of armor when they close into melee. That'll be useful in and of itself. We have the Grumbling Guard here to buff them up on this flank, so they'll be keeping their stamina up once they get into melee. And we have a couple other units that we'll talk about in a second here. But what do Slayers offer? Well, they have quite a bit of DPS themselves, high weapon strength, and they actually have deceptively high armor-piercing damage as well. 16 of their, I think, 48 weapon strength or so is AP damage. So they can actually deal decent damage to high armored stuff like Swordmasters of Hoeth or White Lions or other units like that. Problem is, again, they'll still get crushed by them because they're so squishy. Other problem is, we're playing against the High Elves of Ulthuan, and they have a lot of archers. So with 0 armor, you can imagine that even though they have that 30% missile block chance, they're still going to die in droves to arrow fire. So what we're going to do here is take a look at the army composition real quick. We're spreading the field a lot here, and that's one of the biggest things. You know that archers are going to be focusing one direction. If you can move part of your army out to a flank and kind of prevent them from firing in one concerted direction where they can focus their fire, that can kind of mitigate their damage output quite a bit. So we've got 3 Grumbling Guard out on this flank, Ungrim Ironfist and the Grumbling Guard to keep their stamina up. On this flank, we have 3 Slayers and the Peak Gate Guard Hammers, which are amongst the best infantry units in the entirety of Total War Warhammer. Even when the 3rd game comes out, I imagine they're still going to be kicking quite a bit of ass because they're powerful. I mean, their stats are just absolutely insane. They can beat up Swordmasters, they can beat up White Lions, just need to make sure they get their charge bonus off. Runesmith to buff them up. That Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin will be very nice to help deal some DPS to the high value targets on the High Elf line. And we have Gyrocopters with Brimstone Guns. Now, this is a unit you don't see too often. They're more ideal against high HP, low entity unit counts. Not single entities, but like cavalry, they're incredibly good against because they have really high missile damage, really high AP. But that AP is still going to be very useful against stuff like the Swordmasters of Hoeth. We'll overkill them a little bit with our shots, but that's okay because we want to just get them off the field very early so that our Slayers can deal with the Spearmen and deal with the White Lions, which they're much more suited to combating. So these guys, these Swordmasters here, are going to be a serious problem in close quarters combat. And the other thing the Gyrocopters are going to offer is that they can dodge a lot of these archer shots and kind of prevent them from focusing fire in one direction again. We move them into the back lines, make the archers fire this way, we can dodge a lot of their shots and allow our Slayers to get in relatively unmolested, which will be pretty useful in and of itself. Let's press play here and look at the rest of the High Elf build. 3 Swordmasters, it's going to be a serious problem against a core of Slayers. White Lions, a lot of archers, some spearmen, Teclis, and some Eagle Claw bolt throwers, as well as long as an Ethel Mar chariot. So pretty interesting build from the High Elves here. He's gonna have a melee advantage, even though we're rushing with a purely melee focused build. These 3 Swordmasters will be able to slaughter a lot of our troops, which is one reason why we're spreading the field. We want to make sure that we get him kind of isolated out on each flank and can kind of get those rear charges off with the Slayers and get some good shots in with our Gyrocopters with Brimstone Guns as well, who are patrolling for right now, trying to focus a little bit of the archer fire in the back while our Slayers move up. But yeah, the first thing we're going to do is move our Gyrocopters into range of these Swordmasters and try to shut them down early. And we can do some serious DPS here. The Brimstone Guns will kill a model or 2 with each of their shots, and already killed 4 models with a volley from each. So Slayers moving up now. That Rune of Wrath and Ruin will be very nice for equalizing the melee fight a little bit more. And of course we have the Rune of Oath and Steel to give them some armor and some damage resistance as well. And almost without question, this is going to be the kind of build that's a lot more viable once Giant Slayers are added, because they're going to offer a lot more infantry killing potential. With that said though, we're going to try to do some damage here, and I think we're going to be able to. These Slayers already taking a ton of damage on the way in. The Swordmasters have gotten shredded here in the back lines as the Brimstone guns fire in. And they're already down to about 6,000 HP. They've lost 20 or 22 of their units so far. Slayers moving up. And we're going to try to get one Rune of Wrath and Ruin into these Swordmasters before we finally close in. The Peak Gate Guard should hopefully be able to do well against them. Slayers moving up now. We want to avoid the charge bonus of these Swordmasters, so one of the ways you can kind of do that to mitigate the damage output from that 20 charge bonus, which is pretty powerful for an AP infantry unit, is get Ungrim in there first and kind of absorb that charge and then engage. You can see that even with that 30% missile block chance, these Slayers have already lost 2/3 of their HP. Not good, and Ethelmar Chariots, they're not going to have a problem pulling through Slayers either. Slayers probably amongst the lower mass units that can kind of get bowled over, especially because they're in loose formation. That's not the biggest issue for the Chariot. They'll be able to do some damage to them as well. Now, the Gyrocopters are absorbing a lot of the fire here, which is very good for us. Ungrim getting in, and one blow from the Axe of Dargo should decapitate a couple of models here. Yeah, gonna chop their heads off very nicely. And PK Guard, they're gonna be the linchpin. I need them to kick some serious ass this battle to equalize the melee fight. Runesmith going down. We got the Rune of Wrath and Ruin to lower their speed. And with the charge here from the Peak Gate Guard, actually these Swordmasters are going to miss their charge here. And that means they're going to get demolished in the melee fight right off the charge. Already up to about 10 kills. And that'll go down. Swordmasters will quickly get butchered there. We've gotten a surround on the Spearmen here. On this flank, things are much worse though. Flock of Doom going down from Teclis. Ungrim trying what he can with that bonus for Sludge to do some serious damage to the Ithamar Chariot. But the Slayers engaged the Spearmen, did some damage, but as the Swordmasters came over, we're going to decide to disengage. And that will be important here too. If we're losing a melee fight, we don't have to stick around. We have the speed to disengage, so we'll pull these Slayers out. And on this flank, we're going to do the exact same thing over here. Slayers are going to lose to White Lions in prolonged combat, even though the White Lions are not the most cost-effective infantry unit to be engaging Slayers, because again, you're paying for that missile resistance, you're paying for that AP, kind of goes to waste against Slayers. We can pull out and look for a different engagement because of that mobility that we have. So Swordmasters are dying horribly, but we've got two Illyrian Reavers in the back lines that are Vanguard deployed. They'll be looking for some rear charges as the Gyrocopters try to focus the fire from the archers and still get those shots in. One of them already up to 36 kills, which is very nice, and Ungrim pushing up now. Slayers kind of using their Grumbling Guard here with a rear charge to do what damage we can to the Swordmasters to try to overwhelm them, or pull out and tie down these Swordmasters as well. As we've got a Fiery Convocation on the way from Teclis. And again, this is something that we can use here. We see that it's only Spearmen engaging our Peak Gate Guard. They can't do a lot of damage. Pull them out of the fight, it's completely fine. If it was Swordmasters, turning your back to them would be a bigger issue. But Spearmen, they don't have the melee attack to really punish us here. We pull out, he misses that spell completely, and we're in much better shape. And we're buffing up our Slayers with the Rune of Oath and Steel for that plus 30 armor, that damage negation, 22% damage resistance. But we've got a problem, because Illyrian Reavers are coming in from behind, and that will do some serious damage to our Slayers, because they have no armor, a rear charge against them. Even though they are bonus for Slarge, that's still going to hurt a lot here. We want to disengage quickly after that cycle charge, but it did do some serious work to our Slayers. And Swordmasters already up to 92 kills. These ones up to 20, but that's going to quickly raise as they engage more and more of our angry bearded Mohawk Dwarfs. And Ungrim trying what he can, but surrounded by AP units. He doesn't want to stick around for very long. You can see his HP is dropping very quickly, while the Gyrocopters tie down some of these archers in the back lines and make sure they stop firing. Both throwers still getting some shots in, up to 30 kills so far. Got a Chain Lightning. That's going to do some damage to the Peak Gate Guard for sure. And he'll finish off the White Lions as well, who will just get jibbed consistently by that huge bolt of energy. More rear charges from the Illyrian Reavers. And let's take a look at how this battle is progressing so far. A lot of our Slayers already massively depleted, taking a lot of damage, but the Rune of Wrath and Ruin has definitely helped us equalize the melee fight a little bit. Slayers down to there are 44 kills, but only 20 models left. Grumbling Guard will get overwhelmed by the Swordmasters here. Things are looking a little bit iffy for our Slayer rush, because these archers have been left relatively uncontested in the back. Gyrocopters try to tie them down in melee, but of course they're not very good in melee combat. We got some good shots from the Brimstone guns. Some good shots in. Yeah, they're going to jib a lot. That AP is very nice to help turn that in our favor a little bit, but another big Flock of Doom on everything, and that's going to do so much damage to our Slayers. More range fire coming in. Illyrian Reavers and Ithamar Chariots coming in as well. Big charge from them, scything through our ranks. Things are looking pretty bad for the Dwarves right now, balanced more heavily in the High Elves' favor. So how do we want to turn things back? Well, One, we got to get all of our stuff in a big blob, which is normally not ideal, but we really want to get the most out of our Rune of Oath and Steel. We want to get that armor up for our Slayers, get that 30 armor, get that damage resistance in. So we want to get everything together. And that will make it a lot harder for the Ungrim Reavers to do their damage. When there are a bunch of Slayer models hitting them, they'll die very quickly. So we want to get everything kind of conglomerated together and just get it in the presence of our Runesmith, which will be a pretty big deal if we can get those damage resistance buffs off on our Slayers. Because, again, one of the important things about Slayers is they have that death blow ability. When they drop below, I believe, 20%, they get a big buff to their AP damage and their weapon damage, which will be very nice as we move into the later stages of this game. And there are still a lot of Sword Masters to deal with. So it's a little bit scary right now as our gyrocopters fire into those Illyrian Reavers. There's still a lot of archers firing. They have a lot of ammo left, and one of these gyrocopters pretty soon gonna go down. Only lost one of the copters so far. But as we get, oh man, big charge from the Illyrian Reavers here, completely surrounding them. Nice charge from the chariot, and these Slayers will probably go down. Just only a handful of them left, getting their heads chopped off by the spears of that light cavalry. Grumbling Guard and PK Guard next to Ungrim, next to the Runesmith. But we have so little infantry left now. Everything is just black bar of health pool. Ungrim's the only thing that can anchor this flank. And the PK Guard with 147 kills, trying to tie down Teclis here, prevent him from escaping. Now Ungrim with that bonus force large and that AP, it's going to make it really bad for Teclis if he sticks around. These Slayers, only one of them left, 5 HP left, charging in. And he'll go down pretty soon here. Yeah, against these Sword Masters, there's absolutely no way they're going to win this fight. It's fun to watch them make their last stand. But yeah, they're going to death blow, maybe? Oh no, didn't get a kill. But Teclis goes down over on this flank, which is not good. That's very bad. There was absolutely no reason that Teclis should have been even close to Ungrim there with that bonus versus large. And Balance War was heavily in the High Elves' favor. With Teclis going down, it shifted a little bit back towards the Dwarfs. That said, though, look what they have left. They have Ungrim, they have a handful of hammers, Slayers with 19 health. Yeah, I mean, they're making their last stand here. It's going to be an epic, badass last stand, but what can they really do? What can they do against those two-handed axes from the White Lions here? Yeah, gonna get his head chopped off, both of them decapitated, and things are looking really, really bad. What's left? PK Guard with 230 health, even less now after that volley. I'm not even sure they're gonna make it into melee. Ungrim with 1600 and the Runesmith 2800. That's it. Leading a desperate final charge into the center of the White Lions. Axe of Dargo flashing. He'll get some nice decapitations here, but does he have the power to finish off what's left of the High Elves? Gyrocopters are still in the fight somehow, and they're absorbing a lot of the fires. Another one of the copters goes down. Some spearmen in the back lines should be coming back to the fight after routing pretty soon here. There's so little left. There's a single model on the hammers, and he's sent flying about 30 feet. He's still alive, though. I imagine not for long. It's just Ungrim, just the Runesmith, and the Grumbling Guard. I guess there are 12 models left in that unit as well. But Ungrim taking a lot of archer fire. Hammer is shattered. It won't be coming back. And the High Elves can kind of take their pick of the litter here in terms of shots. Kind of whittle down the Dwarf army as the chariots charge in. Run them over. Obviously not going to do very good against Ungrim, the Slayer King. But they will do quite a number on these Grumbling Guard. Run them over with impunity. Things are very, very bad. But the one good thing about what's going on here is the archers are firing into the gyrocopters, which are just absorbing a lot of the fire, dodging a lot of it. You can see volley after volley missing. And without that support from the gyros this battle, I think the Slayers would have barely made it into melee intact. They already took so much damage going in. The archers were firing to the back of the gyrocopters there. I think that helped them a lot and really helped equalize things a bit in the melee grind as more Ethelmar chariots charge in from behind. Ungrim, Axe of Dargo popped. Bonus force large will not be able to kick in because the Ethelmar chariots are being smart and moving. More of those copters going down. One Slayer left over there. Grumbling Guard routing. And just Ungrim and the Runesmith in the middle of everything as the High Elf army collapses on them. Can they somehow win the day here? There's so little of the Dwarf army left. And remember that Rune of Wrath and Ruin is capped. Which is really... Oh, wow. Just got like 3 decapitation there. That was nice. That's going to be a problem. But with the blob here, that opens up an opportunity for some bomb runs. And that's going to do some very nice damage. And that's going to cause a lot of routing too. Big bombs from the gyrocopters here. And bounce bars now even. Ungrim and the Runesmith are kicking some serious ass. And that Mohawk is lucky. It's a lucky thing for the Slayer King. He just can't die. You won't go down. As the Ithamar chariots continue to try to run him over. They're so bad against single entities. And there's still some more ammo left on the gyrocopter who will be able to do some more damage as more chariot charges. Grumbling Guard going flying here. And it's so close. Could still go either way. But it's archers and spearmen in close quarters fighting with the Slayer King. That is not really where they want to be. And the Axe of Dargo will continue to reap a terrible toll as he continues to get bowled over. And Dwarfs, that's what happens to them, man. They just get rolled over by the bigger entities, the higher mass stuff. He's up to 56 kills right now. Bounce bar shifting in the Dwarfs' favor, and his archers charge in. I don't think they're going to have the power to take down the Dwarfs of Karak Kadrin. And somehow, even though they had a really big advantage earlier on, the Slayers go down so quickly, Ungrim will make his last stand, and it will be enough to seal the deal and carry the Dwarfs to victory. Runesmith and Ungrim, that's all that it took in the end there. So, Slayers as a core, again, not particularly viable in terms of a competitive matchup. They can be really fun. They can actually be good against some factions. I wouldn't count the High Elves as one of them. Against Wood Elves in some situations, against Skaven, against some other factions, they can be okay as a kind of funny non-meta pick. But here can be a little bit problematic. They actually did pretty well. And I think a big reason for that was the gyrocopters absorbed a lot of the archer fire, and they did a lot of damage to the swordmasters before we ever got into close quarters fighting, which was the only way these Slayers were ever going to get any kills, as if the swordmasters were already massively depleted. Again, the death blow and the fact that they have that 16 AP damage component does make them a little bit better against armor than you'd expect, but they're just so squishy, and the archers are such a problem for them. That's why we brought the Runesmith to keep their armor up a little bit more, which will synergize pretty nicely with the missile block chance. And we wanted to just spread the field and kind of disengage and think about different ways to attack. You don't want to just run in with your whole army focused in one area, because that's when the archers can just focus right ahead and shoot everything down before they ever get in. So that's why we did what we did. Worked out relatively well. There were definitely some mistakes made on the High Elf line. I made plenty of mistakes in that battle. For one, bringing Slayers as a core. That's one of them. But in terms of the micro is not particularly hard with an army like this, right? We dodged some spells. We dodged some archer fire with the gyros. But with the Dwarfs, they've never been the most micro-intensive faction. One of the ways you can make it a little bit more interesting is by rolling with a build like this that has that extra mobility, and try to do some flanking, try to get that charges in from the flank and rear, and just kind of change things up a bit. And again, with the Giant Slayers with their 50 AP, or their 50 melee attack, and their high AP, I think they're going to be monsters versus infantry and cav. They're also going to be very expensive though. They're going to make this kind of build a lot more viable, but I don't know how many you'll actually be able to afford because they're just so expensive. But yeah, the Peak Gate Guard were definitely MVPs for me this battle. 150 kills on Swordmasters and High Elf Spearmen and White Lions. Really strong, and Ungrim carried the day for me for sure. So I hope you guys enjoyed the look at the Ungrim build there. We're going to be doing more builds like that, I assume, when Giant Slayers and Ungrim and Karak Kadrin actually officially get added, which will be very soon. See you next time, Mini Pride. Signing out for now.